Hello dearest friends, welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. For me, this feels like a deja vu because I just filmed my recent reads for April. It was like a mid-month wrap-up video that I'm going to link up in the cards if you want to check it out if you haven't already. And now I'm doing it again because I really didn't have any time to film anything else this week. It's been a bit hectic for me. So I'm just going to wrap up the month of April today, and then hopefully the next video you're going to see is the long-awaited new releases vlog that I've been preparing. I filmed all the clips, but really it's been a difficult time for me to just sit down and edit it. I haven't had any time for that because, fun fact, this weekend actually, it's Easter weekend here for us in Bulgaria. I know that Easter was way back when, like a month ago, everywhere else. It's just that we're all Orthodox Christians here, so our Easter falls on a different date. We follow a different type of calendar here with the saints and everything. So our Easter is this week, and I've just had a lot of things to prepare for with my son because he's now at an age where he really is excited about doing all kinds of traditions and stuff that is tied to those holidays. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of things at home. I've had a lot of things to do at work, so please excuse my absence with different kinds of content that I usually prepare for my channel. I'm going to get back to those as soon as possible. But right now I'm going to wrap up the month of April because I did read 10 more books besides the ones that are included in the previous video. And it's a mixed bag of books. I mean, there's everything thrown into the mix here. We've got obviously a lot of romance books because that's my go-to genre. We've got a contemporary fiction book, we've got a romantasy book, we've got a young adult fantasy kind of interesting mythological kind of book. So I really have a lot of thoughts on those, and I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. The first book that I read came highly recommended by Victoria from Victoria Romance Reads. I've seen her talk about the full series by this author. It's Unhinged is the first book that I read by Onley James. I'm not sure what the name of the series is, but it's like 6 or 7 books that follow these serial killers, and all of the books are male-male romances if I'm not mistaken, and they're all focusing on different serial killers who are part of this kind of like adopted family. So there's this guy who has adopted all these serial killers, or actually they're all kind of socio or psychopaths, and he is kind of teaching them how to best become serial killers because they're on the hunt for other very bad kind of people. So they're kind of killing off people who deserve it, let's put it like that. So these are dark romances. All of them are male, and the first one that I read is Unhinged. This one was an interesting one. I have to say that the premise was very interesting. It was really intriguing and a very fast read. I read the audiobook for it. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 8 hours. So when you listen to, at least I listened to it on 2 times speed. So it was like a 4-hour audiobook for me. It was a very quick and very engaging read, very kind of fast-paced one. So it was very easy to kind of fall into the plot and also enjoy the connection that the characters have with each other. The two heroes have a history together. So the serial killer in this book, I forgot his name, I forgot both their names essentially, but the serial killer in this book, he has killed the father of the other hero. And the other hero essentially has been looking for this guy to get his revenge, right? But then when they meet each other, they're at this impasse where they have this very difficult conversation of, you know, you killed my father, you deserve to die. And the other guy is like, yeah, but you don't know who your father was and why he deserved to die. So it's a very interesting setup. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 stars. And then I read a young adult fantasy romance. So a romantasy, but young adult. It's Shielded by the author, let me see, Kaylynn Flanders. This one was interesting. I mean, I was engaged with it, but for some reason, I wasn't really very invested in it. We've got our heroine, Janissara, who is this princess of this kingdom. She's actually second born, so she's not the heir to the throne of her kingdom. It's her brother, and she has magical abilities. She has some kind of emotional ties to everyone in her family, so she can feel them and sense them everywhere. And we don't know what else her abilities can do for her at the beginning of the book. Her father is sensing that there is going to be this turmoil, this kind of war, because a lot of people who are having magic are not very well received anymore in society. So they feel like this conflict is brewing. And he decides that he's going to marry off Janisara to a prince in a neighboring kingdom so that they can have a stronger alliance. Janisara doesn't really want to do that. She actually wants to go to the front and fight a good fight. But basically both her brother and her father forbid her to do that, and they send her on this journey to go to this kingdom so that she can meet her betrothed. And while she is traveling to this other kingdom, a lot happens. So there's this, I just don't want to spoil the plot. So something happens within her family, something happens to her own convoy that is traveling to this kingdom, and then she basically loses almost everyone who is traveling with her. And she's the only one who kind of survives this ambush that she landed in. And basically she needs to get to this other kingdom on her own, but she doesn't really know if it's safe for her to go as her own identity, as herself, as the princess. So she adopts a new identity. And that's where the story kind of begins, basically. And it is a fast-paced kind of romantasy, but like I mentioned, it's just one that didn't really captivate me very much, so I was not as invested as I wanted to be. And also the secret identity kind of situation, I'm not sure that I was a fan of that. I mean, I understand why the author went through that route, because it really served the purpose of the story in a specific way, but I'm just not sure that I was a fan of that. So I gave it 3.5 stars, but honestly, I don't think that I'm going to continue on with the series because I just wasn't as invested as I should have been for me to want to continue on with the series. And now I can talk about one of my 5-star reads of the month of April. I really love this book. It's not a romance book, it's a contemporary fiction book, and it's called The Guncle. It's by Stephen Rowley, and I had heard about this book from Hailey in Bookland, like really a while ago, maybe a year or 2 ago even, I don't know. And it had just stuck in my mind that I really want to read this book because it sounds really good. And somehow I thought of that book specifically this month. I found that I have it through audio, so I decided to pick it up, and I was so enamored with the story. I have to say that this is not a very easy read because it mainly deals with grief, and it deals with grief for a loved one, so someone who is close to you. In the specific case, the hero Patrick, his best friend died, and his best friend was actually married to his brother, so essentially she's also the mother of his niece and nephew. So it's someone who is essentially family to him, and he has lost her due to a battle with illness. And also the children in the plot, they're dealing with losing their parents. So there is a lot of grief. There is a lot of emotional turmoil within this story, but it's handled with such interesting tactics and with so much care that I really enjoyed the story so much. So we've got our hero Patrick. He is openly gay, and he is also someone who used to be very famous because of a sitcom that he used to be a part of. But he basically also lost his partner when he was quite younger. And he became a recluse after having lost his favorite person in the world. So he bought himself this house somewhere in California, and he had kind of closed himself off from everyone. He didn't work, he didn't meet up with his loved ones. He just kind of basically became a recluse. But then he needs to come out of hiding, basically, because his brother needs his help, because his brother's wife passed away. His brother's wife is Patrick's best friend, and he just needs to step up and take care of his niece and nephew while the dad needs to go through this grieving process and certain steps that he needs to undertake to be a better father for his children. And basically, we've got Patrick, our Guncle, who is just this very interesting type of character. He has never cared for children, he has never wanted children, but now he has to take care of these two kids who are very impressionable, who are dealing with a very tough situation, and who just need someone to care for them in the best possible way. And he just needs to wing it in the best possible way. He needs to connect with them, he needs to get to know them, he needs to give them what they need and really find out what they need. So this is such a wonderful coming of age story for the children, for the father, but also for the main hero, Patrick, because he basically had given up on living any kind of social life. And those kids kind of brought him back to life. And it's just such a wonderful story. I gave this one 5 stars. The next book I read because of the cover. I'm not going to lie. I saw the cover and I was like, this is gorgeous. I need to pick it up. I don't know what it's about. I don't know. Sometimes, I see covers and I get impressions about them. And those impressions are usually very wrong. This one, I saw the cover and I was like, is this a pirate book? At least I hoped it was a pirate book. I don't know, but it wasn't a pirate book. Anyway, the book is called Dragonfruit and the author is Makiia Lucier. This book is a young adult fantasy kind of mythological kind of book. It's marketed as a young adult romance, but the romance doesn't kick in until like 95% within the book. So technically speaking, in my opinion, this is not a romance at all. We've got our heroine Hailey, who used to be part of this very prominent and kind of old family within this island, who were very respected. And then their family kind of fell off of grace because their father did something horrible. In this kind of world that they live in, there are these sea dragons who are laying these eggs, and the eggs are very, very much coveted because if you get one of those eggs, you can get like a wish that can be anything. And most of all, it has like healing powers, and it just is a very kind of important kind of find if you find one. There's always this hunt for these eggs. So Hailey's father had stolen an egg from, I think, like the prince within this island, and the egg was supposed to heal one of the princes, like I think it was his mother. So basically their family fell from grace, so Hailey was kind of shipped off and she was kind of lost to the actual island life. She was on this boat with this horrible, horrible person. And basically, the interesting thing about Hailey is that she has this magical kind of sense for those eggs. So she feels like a connection to them. She can sense them. So she can very easily hunt for them. And the prince with whom she grew up back in the day, he is still looking for an egg to help his ailing mother out. So he enlists Hailey's help to try and find this egg so that he can get his wish. But then there is this complication because if you get one of those eggs, something bad happens as well. So it's kind of a layered story when it comes to what those eggs represent and why they are so coveted. At the same time, it's very kind of adventure filled, the story, but I did not connect very well with this book. I don't know what it was. It was the whole time like the hunt for those eggs. It just felt very repetitive to me. I was kind of lost in the connection between all the different characters that were introduced. I was waiting the whole time for the romance to happen, and it didn't happen until quite the end of the book. So I really was a little disappointed in this one. I gave it 3 stars, and yeah, I just didn't enjoy it as much as I hoped that I would. And the next up, I read a new release. This is by Sarah Adams. It's the rule book. It's one of my anticipated releases of this year. I have to say that April was like a smashing month when it came to new releases. I mean, Abby Jimenez, Emily Henry, Sarah Adams, Elsie Silver, all those gorgeous and wonderful and really hyped authors came out with books, and all of those books were just marvelous. The only book that I haven't read yet is Wild Love by Elsie Silver, but I'm going to pick this one up like soon. So yeah, the rule book I really enjoyed. I gave it 4 stars. It's the second kind of companion novel to the cheat sheet. I really liked that one, and I had kind of high hopes for this one as well. It focuses on an NFL player and a sports agent, and the two of them have history, so this is definitely a second chance romance, and it's a second chance romance where the first chance basically went really wrong. I mean, one of them really got their heart smashed into pieces, so we've got a situation where one of the characters needs to kind of own up to their mistakes and needs to kind of grovel and needs to do whatever they can to get into the good graces of the other character. I'm not going to mention who, but yeah, this one was a fun read. I really enjoyed it. I had some kind of notes for myself that, like, some parts of the story that were not my favorite, but I just enjoyed it. I love Sarah Adams' writing because it's not very spicy. Sometimes you just need a book that is not filled with spice. So this one is definitely a good one if you're not too comfortable with reading too spicy books. And yeah, it was just an enjoyable read. I give it 4 stars. And then the next book I picked up specifically because Christi from Christi Reads a Lot recently did a video of her like 15 books that define her reading taste. I think it was that video that I saw this book from. It's by Cara Bastone. I've loved a lot of Cara Bastone's books, so I really wanted to pick this one up. This one is called Just a Heartbeat Away, and the book centers on a single dad who became a single dad because his wife passed away. And the heroine within the book used to be his son's teacher. Now, the backstory of the story is basically that once the hero became a widower, he really kind of lost it. He kind of almost neglected his son because he was just not in the headspace, the right headspace to take care of his son. So he used to send his son without like lunch to school and kind of being all disheveled and everything. So his teacher, the son's teacher, she really took notice that something is really not going right, and she decided to invite the father and have a frank, kind of open and honest talk about what is going on and that his son really needs him. And she really helped him out because she gave him this kind of like a schedule of how to go about a daily routine step by step so that he knows that he has covered all his bases. This is like the basic of getting back into taking care of someone when you've lost someone. And that kind of helped him out so much. So he was really appreciative of that. And their love story doesn't start until 2 years after that specific meeting. So I really appreciated that the story, kind of the love story, evolved when she was not the son's teacher anymore. I really liked that. And the interesting kind of angst-filled situation within the story is that actually when they meet up and he starts to show interest in her, she actually is in a relationship. So this is an interesting kind of start to their story because there is definitely attraction between them. There's also an age gap between them. So this one was a really interesting and kind of emotional and heartfelt read. I gave it 4 stars and I really enjoyed it. And then I read a second Chloe Liese book for myself, at least in April. The book is called Two Wrongs Make a Right. This is part of a Shakespeare retelling series that Chloe Liese has released. I think right now there's 2 books released and there's, I think, a third one coming up if I'm not mistaken. This book is a reimagining of Much Ado About Nothing by Shakespeare. And it's a situation where the hero and heroine, they meet up at this party and they have this immediate dislike towards one another. And the interesting thing is that they were invited to this party by their respective like best friend and sister so that they can kind of fix them up to start dating. And the 2 of them don't really appreciate that they've been thrown into the situation, so they decide that the best way to kind of get back to their respective sister and best friend is to start fake dating and then kind of make it a point of really showing them that they're not fit to be together. So their kind of matchmaking abilities are not what they think that they are. So Basically, they decide to have this fake dating relationship, and they're really opposites of each other. I mean, the heroine B, she is like this. She does have autism, so there is great representation for autism and also great representation for anxiety for the hero. But she's basically kind of more outgoing. She's not afraid to show her opinion. She is very opinionated. She is very kind of also colorful. So she is very much someone who stands out in a crowd. While the hero, he is very much the opposite because he's riddled with anxiety. He very much is socially awkward. He doesn't like being in crowds. He doesn't like to interact with people a lot. So he kind of is really the opposite of B. And the two of them at the beginning really don't mesh very well, but at the same time, both of them kind of see the appeal to the other. And once they start fake dating, obviously they get to know each other in different lights, so that they also start appreciating their character traits more and more, and also their backstory, obviously, as well. So, yeah, this was a very cozy kind of read for me. I really enjoyed it. I did have a problem with the third act breakup. That's why I didn't give it 5 stars. I gave this one 4 stars, but I still did enjoy it, and I'm very much looking forward to the next one out of this series. Next up, I read one of my favorite reads of the month. It's Funny Story by Emily Henry. I know that everyone is very divided about Emily Henry. You've got the ride or die fans of this author, and you've got people who just don't get the hype behind this author. For me, it's really kind of case by case situation because I haven't loved all of the books by Emily Henry that I've read, but the ones that I've loved, I've really, really loved. This is one that I just really highly enjoyed. I'm not sure if I enjoyed it as much as Happy Place, if I have to be honest, because Happy Place just was the one that appealed to me the most because of the tropes within that book. They were just really kind of almost written for a person like me because I really enjoyed those kinds of situations within life. This one was a bit different because we've got a situation of the heroine and the hero. They start living together because their respective partners left them to marry each other. So they're both in this funny story situation where they both got dumped. The heroine, Daphne, she was supposed to marry her partner. He left her literally right before the wedding. And the hero, he was in a committed relationship, I think like 2 or 3 year relationship with his respective partner, and she left him to go run away with this guy who was supposed to get married. So the two of them are in this predicament. She is financially not doing very well, so she really needs to figure out what she's going to do. She's a librarian. He is presented as this kind of flighty character at the beginning, where the heroine thinks that he doesn't really have a stable job because that's how he was presented to her by her then boyfriend or fiance. And she slowly finds out that that is not exactly the case. Miles, our hero, is very much someone who just has had a very difficult kind of life with not a lot of stability within his life. And that is why he looks like he doesn't have his things together, but he's actually looking exactly for the kind of stability that is going to make him break out of the mold of his family. So it's a very interesting story because the two of them start off with really being forced into being roommates because of the situation that they were in, into commiserating about their horrible circumstances that they kind of had to encounter, and then slowly becoming friends, and that friendship blossoms into more. It's such a wonderful, wonderful story because it just shows you a lot of flaws within their characters. It shows you how they cope with the situation that no one wants to be in. It shows you how they forge this friendship out of an unlikely circumstance. And the third act breakup was one that I think that some people may have a problem with, and I would understand that. But even that did not deter me from really loving this story. I just had the best of time with it. I could not put it down, and I definitely want to purchase a physical copy of it so that I can sometime just reread it slowly on like paper. I would really love to do that with this one. So yeah, I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars. And then I picked up a debut novel that I really enjoyed. The book is called When I Think of You by Myah Ariel. This debut novel really reminded me of Real by Kennedy Ryan. It just had the same kind of feel to it because it involves filmmaking. The heroine is in love with filmmaking. She actually wants to be a producer on films. And she meets the hero when they're back in college in New York City in film school. So they have this kind of whirlwind romance when they're in college, but then something happens and they break up. And then a couple of years later, she is working at this film production company, but she's only an assistant. She really wants to be a producer, but she never gets a fair shot within the production company that she works for because first of all she's a woman and second of all she's Black. So she really has her cards dealt against her and she really wants to make it in the movie making industry, but she just doesn't get a fair shot. And then the hero, he is actually coming from a family of a very prominent and very famous filmmaker, so he actually has doors open for him already because of his heritage. So he already has made it within the movie world because of that. He's going to be producing or he's going to be directing this new movie that is going to center on his parents' love story. And he really wants the heroine to help him out with being a kind of a director's assistant. So this is going to be their second chance at love story. And the thing that reminded me of Real is really the movie making aspect and also the fact that it's kind of a forbidden situation because they're going to be working together. They also have this forced proximity and this amazing chemistry that they cannot kind of fight, which we have in Real as well. So it was just really wonderfully done. And for a debut novel, it was just a gorgeous love story. I gave it 4.5 stars. The last book that I read is a historical fiction book. It's a very popular book. It's Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This book, I didn't know if I was going to love it, but I really ended up loving it. I gave it 4 stars. It features a heroine who is living in the 60s and she wants to be a scientist very badly. It's like her priority and main goal in life to become a scientist. But within the society that she lives in the 60s, it's a male-dominated world and she just doesn't get a fair shot as well. Also, when she used to be in university, she was sexually abused. Because of that, she actually had to drop out of school. So she didn't really finish her degree, and that is why also she was not taken very seriously in the respective fields that she was entering. So she had, again, all the cards stacked against her, but she is a fighter. She's someone who believes in herself. She's someone who knows what she wants to achieve. And this fighting spirit that she has is what kind of pushed her to break boundaries within the field that she was operating in. And it's just such a powerfully, wonderfully written story. So for me as a reader, I really enjoyed this book. It's not a 5-star read. It's just not the type of book that I would give 5 stars to because I just have a very different taste in books in general. But that does not take away from my enjoyment of the book. I really liked it. I give it 4 stars and I definitely want to watch the Apple TV show that was based on this book because I think I'm going to enjoy it as well. So yeah, this one was a hit for me. So my dear friends, these were all the books that I managed to finish in the second part of April. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a thumbs up if you did and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and let me know if you've read any of the books that were on my list as well. Let me know what you thought about them, whether you enjoyed them as much as I did. And also let me know what you read in April, whether I should be on the lookout for anything that you read and enjoyed. So I hope to see you in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care and bye-bye.